Welcome to Mastering Wireless Configuration with Tyler McLeod. As you can see, we are not Tyler McLeod. Dustin forgot to put in his bio and headshot, so he was a filler for us. But we're here to talk about a day in the life of a network engineer on Aruba Central, and we will have a focus on configuration and everything that goes into to what we're doing. But my name is Mike Patrick. I'm the territory manager for HP Aruba Networking. This is Dustin Hopkins, system engineer. Been with the company for 4 years. Dustin's been with the company for now 10. So we've been working with High Point Networks for all of that time. It's been a valuable partnership. We love the company, and so I want to thank them for having us. So we hope that if you know anything about Aruba, you learned something today, and if you don't, we hope that you learn a lot. So I'll just do a quick overview, and then we're going to jump into New Central and have Dustin give a good run through on really what's a day in life look like for an engineer. So when you take a look at how all of the users that are connecting, all of that data at the edge is what we've been focused on as a company, right? So we knew wireless was going to be really important, really cool, but we really wanted to focus on how do we secure this data? How do we secure that access? So whether you're connecting wired, wirelessly through SD-WAN, 5G, various IoT devices on the network, we want to be able to view everything that's on the network with as much accuracy as possible. So in order to protect, we have to be able to see what's on the network. From then, we can work on network access control, authentication methods. Really where we're going to focus most of our time today is going to be on the automate section, so provisioning, orchestration. We're going to jump into AI ops, and show you how you would view that as a network engineer in your environment. And I'm sure you guys are starting to put together all of the pieces. AI is really important, going to be more important. So we'll give you a little flavor of what we're doing on that. So we have a lot of flexibility with how we deploy for remote branch, cloud, campus, data center. As some of you may know, if you don't, we have very flexible options with how you're going to manage, whether it be controller, on-prem, cloud, and even with Aruba Central, on-prem Central is an option with us as well to give the flexibility for the customers that cannot go into the cloud. And just a brief overview as to why organizations are choosing Aruba Networks for Central and for cloud management. It's really our data lake is the primary focus here. We have over 5 million devices running in Aruba Central with over 2 billion clients connected. So we have a massive data lake that's going to help us grow our telemetry data and feed that into AI to get to a lot better insights, right? That's our goal, is to help engineers get to a quicker mean time to resolution. So if everybody wants to blame the network, you guys know it's not the network. How can we flush that out as quickly as possible? If it is a network, how can we help rectify the situation immediately without anybody knowing that there was a problem? In other circumstances, how can we show that it might be something else and we get to troubleshooting those areas faster, right? Without the end users knowing that there's any sort of potential problem even going on. So that's the goal for us. So reducing troubleshooting time, configure and manage lots of different API streams to help automate your entire environment as well. So yeah, I guess any questions that come up, if there's anything pressing, I'll pass you a microphone. We're going to save some time at the end as well for 15 minutes or so for Q&A, if anybody has anything. But we'll just jump into Central, kind of show you what that looks like, and go from there.
All right. So like Mike said, we're just going to get rid of all the slides and just drive through Central, right? So like you said, if you got any questions, just ask. You guys can help lead this conversation as much as you want to, or I can just drone on about Central. All right, so on those slides, one thing you saw on the right, and you've probably seen throughout the day or anytime you've been around HP as a whole, everything is going to GreenLake, right? So all the management platforms for your servers, your storage, your network is what we're going to be focused on today. What we're looking at here is just simply a couple of APs and switches in my lab, right? So you get to see kind of what that power is from a simple lab, but we can also get into larger demo environments if there's things here that you haven't quite seen. So if you've used Central in the past, you can see this is a totally different platform, right? It's not a facelift, it's a totally different platform, right? So now we have this toggle up the top right that allows us to get over into New Central, right? So that flips this into now looking at your network overview, right? So we got everything in one page, all my alerts, all my insights, my device inventory, my license consumption, and all of my sites are going to be here on my left. And what they're going to do is they're going to bubble up to the top to show me where I have problems at, right? So every day I come in, the first thing I see is this knock dashboard, right? Who's having problems? I can see the site up at the top there. We just have one device offline. If we had other issues with airtime fairness, with code, right, we might start to see these things bubble up here as well. So we'll just drive through a couple of these screens here, a couple of these cards, and kind of talk about what we see, right? So we'll just jump into this. All right, so I'm now at my site, right? I'm looking at the past 3 hours. Things to note here is no client data. So we might just jump into another demo lab here to make it a little more interesting. There we are. That looks better. Live labs, love them. So everything we do when we move around in New Central, we're going to have this idea of a solar system, right? So everything I've focused on right now, I'm focused on a site, but I see all the details about that site as my orbiting planets, as we call them, right? So I can see my network's having an issue. Clients look pretty happy. I've got 22 applications, no block sessions, no alerts, right? So pretty good day. At the top here in the center, we'll see our health. What's the problem here? I've got one gateway that's offline, but I've got 28 different clients there that are happy. My APs are happy. Have properties there for the site location. Anybody want to come by the house? Come on by. Usage with our clients and throughput, and then some of our insights here. The other thing I'll point out, and we'll get to in just a second, is across the top we have what we call a time travel bar, right? And this allows us to get some really good details from our network. So I'll just dive into the insights here. And we've talked about it a lot today and throughout many of these types of sessions, but AI-powered network optimization, right? So what are we doing here? You can see the top one. I'm looking at both categories, wireless and security. We've got a recommendation for firmware. In the past, if you ask me, I might tell you one code that I know is stable. You ask my peer in another state, he might tell you another code that's stable. Here, we're using actual AI to check number of cases, number of CVEs, number of downloads, right? All these different things are going into this recommendation, so it's not just go to the latest and greatest code, right? So I can see here which devices are out there. You can see kind of some properties or popularity of these firmware versions and why we're recommending it to you. You can also see the recommendation is firmware security vulnerabilities. So let's get you up to 10.7.2.1, okay? And all these, they're got the little, am I helpful information? Is this good information for you? The next one I like here is as we start to push towards 6 gigahertz, right, we have to enable WPA3, right? I can't have my brand new radio doing 6 gigahertz without this WPA3 option running, right? So we've increased the security, but what's going to happen to my clients? What's out in the wild that maybe can't do that, right? So here, I know all of my clients on my network. I know their capabilities, so I can tell you if you're going to have problems with some clients, right? So now I know before I try and implement this that users are going to be okay with using it, right? Okay. Here's some more information. All right, today everything's all right, but where am I having some problems? Right, so right away, instead of chasing down a user, rebooting an AP, reassociating, I've got problems with DHCP latency. It's high for one of these WLANs, right? So I can see the low latency connections and the high latency ones, right? I can then come here and see my impacted clients. So now I know they're having DHCP issues. I know who they are. I can start troubleshooting in the right location, okay? There's just some more details of where the SSID we're having issues on. And then again, we see that it is the DHCP that's giving us some problems. This is another cool one. This is kind of future looking for where we're wanting to go, right? So out of the box, I've tagged a couple of things here that are IoT, right? And when I say I mean Aruba Central, right? So I see these devices on my network. I tag them automatically as IoT, and I can start to give you some recommendations on your policy, right? These are things that maybe are headless or dumb devices that are hard for me to control where they go, but I know where they shouldn't go, right? So here, I can look at, say, a light here, or what do I pick? Oh, it got the Peloton. So I can see what it talks to in this psychedelic pie chart here, right? I can kind of hover over it and see where it's going. Here I can see the actual applications and session counts and behavior, and then recommend some policy that says this device is okay doing these things, but anything outside of this, I should stop it from, right? I should investigate more because I know this is my pattern over the last 30 days, right? So we're starting to get into more of this user behavioral analytics. And then next step for this would say, not only give me a recommendation, but go push it out there to these devices, right? So now I'm automatically building the policy and the role around this bike or around this light sensor or what have you, okay? You can see I've got a bunch of them here, and again, I did no configuration here. This is just connect and play and optimize. Okay? Yes, sir?
Is that something you could actually do today with New Central, is actually push out that policy?
Not today.
Yeah. What's the timeline on that? Because the suggestion for firmwares and all sorts of stuff is great, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
Dustin, repeat his question for the camera.
So the question was, when can we push the policy out today, right, from this policy generator? We're not pushing it out today, but that is what's coming in the future, right? We're showing you that we can do it. We're showing you that here's the problem is we're running into when are we going beyond what our end user would want us to do, right? As far as configuring a role or an ACL or anything like that. We don't want to break anything. So it's just kind of stepping in that direction until we get more folks comfortable with seeing this and trusting it before we're going to turn around and then push that policy out. No timeline.
For me, the New Central is great as a troubleshooting, just look at stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But most of the time when I'm in here, I'm trying to configure stuff. I'm trying to set things up. I'm trying to change Wi-Fi.
Yep.
I'm trying to adjust this and adjust that. And I just can't do it with the New Central.
Sure. So today it's really MTR, right? So to get that toggle, the next piece here is getting into this configuration sprocket here, and I can show you guys some of that today. But this, if you use Central today in Classic Central, the idea of groups and sites and labels, it kind of goes out the window because we're going back to a more hierarchical configuration that we had in AOS 8. Hey, this is a great question. The configuration piece has been on hold mostly because of user-based tunneling to switch, right? So that piece is holding it up. We're not going to open it up partially. We could get you allow listed for this config today, but the really completeness of switching is missing, right? If you're doing WLANs and AP underlays, then that we can open up for you tomorrow. It's just not GA and open to the wild yet. Okay? Before we jump out of here, I'll just look at the timeline or the time travel here. You can see it's pretty obvious. I can scan this out for 7 days. Every minute of every day, it's taking a snapshot of what's happening on my network, right? So when I see the red tick up there, I can click on that and see what the usage was. I can see what the events were in my network when this event happened, if it was to happen within the past 7 days, right? I can go all the way into this. So this is 12:15 a.m., 12:43 a.m. So now I can see exactly what was happening, right, at that time, right? I've captured all the events. I've captured all the properties, insights and the usage information at that exact moment when there was a problem, right? It's not only waiting for a call, but just seeing in the time travel that I've had a problem. Okay, clear that out. Here's a list of all of our clients. Lots of filters here. What we're looking at is connected, wired, and wireless. So that's currently connected. I cleared that filter out. We'll just pick on a device. So we still have the search bar at the top. You guys have probably seen that in the past as well. I can search for a MAC address, a username. I can search for documentation, right? I don't know how to configure a WLAN. That's all connected to the back end of this search bar. Okay, so now as you see, I clicked on this specific client. You can see my solar system changed to the focus being that client. But still, all the other planets around it, saying the site looks pretty good, the network looks good, applications, security, etc. So just like you would expect to see here, we've got the health of it, all of its properties. For this client, I can add notes, I can edit. Connectivity and performance, right? I can open all this up and expand out into the larger graphs to see more data. Here, because I have all the devices in Central, actually, let me back that up. So all the devices are here in Central, are shown in Central, but this is giving me the full data path, right? I see the SSID it's connected to. I see its signal transmit all in this one spot. I see what channel. I see it's 80 megahertz. It's connected 5 gigahertz to this AP. This AP is plugged into port 6 on this switch. The thing to note here is this guy is not managed in Central, but I can still see it, right? So we're learning that information from LLDP and CDP, depending on what type of device you have out there. But that's why this is grayed out. The importance here is that I can see information from other switch, third-party vendors as well, right? I can get some of this basic data without it being a managed switch in Central. Okay? And then the connection steps, right? So this is the details on this user from its latest attempt and giving us that full data path so I know where it's at. Okay? So classification, I mentioned earlier, I was labeling things IoT, right? So we saw those policies. Here, this little icon, this little gear with the wheel around it is saying ClearPass classified it as an IoT device, right? So we can do some other cool things with tags as they come onto the network. If I see it's not tagged as a HVAC sensor, I can tag that. That tag can then translate into a role passed to it by ClearPass, right? So we're not talking a lot about ClearPass here, but that's kind of the heartbeat of some of this authentication on the background, pushing those roles out, either ClearPass or Central NAC, which is also in New Central, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. Now, as I expand this, this is back to that user behavioral analytics, right? So years ago, we bought a company called Niara. We talked to probably everybody in this room about Introspect. It was too big of a product, and it wasn't ready for consumer or consumption the way we thought it would be. So now it's on the background and central doing this, right? So I can see the classification, the function, the model, et cetera, but I also see time on network, application variety, roaming, right? So all of these things are important to me with IoT devices, right? I don't have a HVAC sensor that should roam around the network, right? So again, what we're trying to do is bring this to visibility, or give you visibility, so that you know things that shouldn't be roaming or shouldn't have a huge variety of applications, you'll see it right here, right? Again, next step, alert, right? Alert on that. Tell you about that. Don't make me go look for it, right? So this is just building that first step into it to give me that visibility, right? And then how did I get all this? I was classified by ClearPass, as by Central, leveraging these static attributes, and this is what we marked it as, right? So a Nest thermostat. Okay. Events, kind of what you would expect. This is just the user kind of cruising around the network. DHCP acknowledges onboard successes. Okay.
When you did that search to get here, is that search at the top like site aware, like where you're currently,
Yeah.
or is it a global search?
So where I was at the site, but I can do it from a global, right?
But it is aware of where you're at that time when it does that search?
Correct.
It's like you had 100 different sites.
Right.
You're telling you about that.
Right. So you can see here, I've really only got clients in this one site, right? But it would show you others if they were in the other list of sites there. Okay. So we look at our applications. You guys may or may not have heard of UXI sensors, but that's the user experience insights. You can see I've got some tests running. So what that's doing is going out and running synthetic tests against DHCP, against DNS, against Facebook, against Netflix, against my internal databases or 365, right? And then reporting that back within this list. Obviously, I'm not doing a ton here with these tests, but you can go and configure that, right? And you start to see what that application looks like, how that looks as an end user, right? The whole idea of UXI is to bring the user experience to light and not the network experience, right? So I log in typically, I log into Airwave, I log into Central, your management platform of choice. You see that the network's up, you see the APs are happy, the switch is happy, but I've still got a user calling to complain, right? It might not be my network, right? Here you can see this UXI sensor. It's out there and it's constantly running these synthetic tests over and over and over. These tests are highly customizable to whatever you need it to be. Also, it's built into GreenLake, right? So we went directly into Central. If I backed out one page, you would see the UXI configuration page where you go and configure all of your tests that makes sense for you. Okay? So that's most of the MRT stuff. We could probably get into the weeds some more, but I'll touch on a little bit of, I'm sorry?
20 minutes till Q&A.
Okay. So here's the new configuration piece, right? This is something we've talked about for a long time. We got a lot of pushback with Classic Central and its way of configuration, with everything having to be in a configuration group and in a site and potentially with a label. Everybody loved the trickle-down hierarchy config of AOS 8. So that's kind of where we're driving this, right? It's not the same, but it is a hierarchical configuration here, right? So you kind of got to think of it like you're a software programmer, right? I start with building my libraries, right? So I've got libraries that have configuration snippets, if you will, of my NTP servers, my DNS servers, things that I want configured everywhere. And then I can go to my global, I can push that down to my global, right? So all these things I want consistent across all of my sites, I can put it global and have them filter down, right? In this instance, it works from least specific to most specific, right? So the things I want everywhere, I configure it global. I can make site collections. So I've got a lot of sites. I've got a bunch of elementary schools versus a bunch of middle schools, right? I can group that elementary site together or sites together so that configuration doesn't have to be done at each individual building, but at that location or at that site collection that makes sense for you. And then obviously as you go down lower, we're getting to the device level, right? So now this is very specific to an outdoor radio. I want it to have a specific RF profile, right? I could come all the way down here and configure that. And then device groups, this is pretty self-explanatory. I've got a bunch of individual devices across, the metro. There are a bunch of outdoor radios that I want to have that same configuration, that same SSID for the parking lot, for instance. I add them to the group and push it out that way. Okay? All the configuration is done through these cards. And you can see the profiles, right? You probably have, if you were in the AOS 8 world, this is where everything is configured, right? I've got my profiles. What profile am I looking for? For instance, we want to create some new radio profiles, right? I just come in here. I'm at that library level. What type of APs am I configuring? Right, so now I can pick and choose my channels that are allowed, my bandwidth, my allowed transmit powers, right? All these are just default, but you can go in and adjust these as you need. Okay? And now I've got this new test profile at the global level that I can push out to my sites, to my site collections, to my devices. Okay? So I mentioned ClearPass and I mentioned Central NAC. So this is not ClearPass in the cloud, but does anybody know or have ClearPass? Okay. So this isn't ClearPass in the cloud, but it starts to feel a lot like it. Okay? So this is just going back. This is me doing some labs where I've created some guest captive portals, some .1x. So this looks like new Central, but we're in the Central NAC configuration side or monitoring side, right? So I can see my authentications. I can see where they're at. I can see why they were rejected, all in this one page, right? And then I can dig down into these guys as I see fit. Now, as I come over here, this is my configuration for Central NAC. Another allow list thing that we can have allow listed for customers to start playing with. Again, because it's allow list, I'll tell you it's a little bit, beta, right? There are going to be some things that aren't quite ready for you, but a lot of these things are ready to go, right? So I can configure my authentication profiles, my policies, my IDPs, my captive portal customization, right? So that I can skin my captive portal to look like my business, right? Messaging, how are we going to get users their guest credentials, SMS or email, right? That's where I configure those types of things. And then my visitors, right? Where can I allow those visitors And visitors is a little bit different than the way we've thought about it in the past, because I might have different types of visitors, right? It's not just a visitor is a visitor. You might be a contractor, an auditor who's going to be here for a month. That's going to be a little different than me just passing through, coming on site for a meeting, right? So those types of things are here for you. And then if we jump into this, you'll see it's really pretty straightforward, right? So here's my integration with Entra. What am I doing? I've created my network, so this is the SSID that's being broadcast. It's using the default certificate. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out here is what we are talking about here with this user onboarding, all right? So I'm doing this .1x. I'm doing certificate-based, so EAP-TLS. So I create this onboarding profile. So with this profile, I can go to this website or redirect my users to this website. It configures the device, downloads the certificate, and now it's on the network, right? I didn't have to try and talk them through it. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just send them this onboarding URL, or they have the app, and they just pop right onto the network without any manual configuration. Again, ClearPass users would have heard of onboarding before, just not in this slick of a manner. Okay? A couple of other things that I wanted to make sure to show here. Let me get back out here. So we've talked about AI, and I've even heard agentic AI used a little bit earlier, right? So it's taking that next step in AI where it's not just looking at stats and telling you something, but it's more reasonable and thoughtful about the answers that it gives you, right? So this is another thing. This is clearly just an internal type of demo today. But since we've done it live before, I figured I'll kind of run through it. But if you look next to the new central toggle, we've got a new button here. And what do we have? A not very well marketed name, but the networking copilot, right? So this is the agentic AI. There are different agents that are running on your network. Not sure why we couldn't think of a better name than copilot, but there you are, right? So we can see what's pending, what's going on. You know, here's some quick suggestions here, right? So I can click on this, or I can just free type. And then it's going to get busy, and what it's doing here, it's going to describe exactly what it's doing, right? So it's going through these different steps. It's all I typed was network health. It says, all right, let me look at my agent to see what this means. Okay, well, we can check the overall network health. Let me check the health of other sites as well while I'm at it, right? You've got a couple of sites here. What else is going on that I can give you information on? Looking for active alerts, right? So this is just doing everyday tasks for me, but doing it in a meaningful way rather than me having to go look for alerts, look for that down device. I can just log in, go to our network copilot, and here's a summary of everything that's happening, right? All in this one little report, right? I can see the overall health. I can see a quick summary. Looks pretty good. 90% are happy. You got one gateway down, which we saw. Gives me an overall health of my devices, my APs, right? Network insights, device inventory, and a quick conclusion, right? So just about everything's happy, but just a quick type of network health gives me this quick summary of my entire infrastructure, right? We did one the other day. It only works for relevant information. I tried to ask it about the stock market, and it was like, nah, I'm not that exposed to the world. But it was just funny to try out. Then this AI pilot. So this is something we've been talking about for a long time, and it's now getting to a place where it's actually doing something that we might be used to with like a ChatGPT or a Gemini. My wife's not here. I can say that. So any questions as we run through this that I could run down for anybody, or everything makes sense?
And if you have any questions, I'll pass you the mic for the recording too. So, just blown away, huh? By the way, the wife joke was because his wife works at Google, so she does not like ChatGPT.
She does not. She does not. Okay, so just another quick look of our applications. This is just another view. I don't know why this isn't default. I like this better. But as we're looking at our applications, right, we can see the application category, the top websites. Are they trustworthy or not, right? We'll start to see if you're going out. We check in with a cloud service, Bright Cloud, that's always looking at the internet, always giving us a risk score so that we can see if there's something risky on my network, if it's known to be a malicious site or not. Okay, so again, just a quick highlighted overview here. Same thing with my clients. This should be default in one guy's opinion. So now that I can come here, I can see a breakdown of the classification of devices on my network. Again, a lot of visibility here. I can see, all of my vendors, the models, the network. And then I can also get down here to explore, right? This is just that quick summary. Come into explore. Now I can get into the weeds on a specific device, right? Here's just the Roku TV. Okay. This one's an interesting one to talk about. So here's our current network topology. Okay. This does not look like your normal network topology, right? So the idea here was that as we got into these larger and larger networks, it just got to where it scans out so far that you can't see the full topology. So the idea here is bring these concentric circles in and show me what's up, what's down. I can switch this to VLANs and see where VLANs live, where VLANs don't. But we're showing this in this new way. I think they're going to give you a switch back and forth because they got so much grief about this, but we'll see. But what this is showing is that this switch is at the core. It's connected to the next switch up, and that's connected to the AP. Here's my down gateway that we keep talking about. So here's where I can look at health. I can look at network. I can look at device type, right? I can see my WLANs, VNIs. I can see WLANs. Did I say WLANs already? VLANs and WLANs, if I didn't. Okay. Mike talked a lot about, not a lot, but talked about the streaming gateway, the APIs. This is where that lives, right in here. We talked a little bit about extensions in the past, but this is some of the built-in extensions that are ready to go, from Splunk to Jamf to vSphere, right? Just some integrations that we can create throughout your IT infrastructure out of the box. All right. So this is just taking a look. We looked at that. Okay. Questions it is.
So one of your question that you asked was, when's this all available, right? So the goal that was given to us as far as being full feature rich, with the exception of SD branch, right? So as many of you know, we acquired Silver Peak a few years back, but we also have SD branch, SD WAN. That's not going to be built in yet, but full feature rich, the goal was this fall, moving customers into testing beta. So if anybody's running Urban Central today that is interested, we're taking that feedback to PLM, any things that you guys would like to see changed, but we can get you guys added for beta before it's GA released. But any questions from anybody?
You might have covered this in the beginning, but this is a total rewrite of Central. Why was that done, and what does that mean for the future?
Sure. So the question was about this is basically a redo of Central, right? So if you have Central today, it looks completely different than Legacy. Why is that? A lot of it has to do with the way we're moving into the AOS 10 architecture, the hierarchical config versus what's in old Central, right? A lot of it is also because it takes so many clicks to get anywhere in old Central, and we're trying to clean that up, right? So giving you that solar system view to dig into a client or a device on the network or the site itself, and being able to check the health without having to go to multiple different steps, right? That was a huge part of it. But Dustin, if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would add to that is that Classic Central was created 9 years ago, right? So as long as I've been here, Central has been a thing. It's just never been the thing, right? So it was really not built for cloud services and microservices the way we do things today, right? It was just a platform in the cloud, not ready for Dockers and containerization and things like that. So that was the rebuild, right? So as I mentioned, it is just a toggle bar, but it's two different platforms stood up, right? So this is one thing that makes me know that they're going to continue to push these things forward that we're talking about and get them out of beta. We're paying AWS twice, right, for each and every customer out there. So they'll get it done. But that's the big thing, right? Mike mentioned it too. We needed a modern look. We needed it easy to navigate. If you're using Classic Central today, you're going to maybe watch that little green bar go across the top, kind of slow to get to the next thing you clicked on, right? So speeding it up and getting that more user-friendly was two big things, right? This isn't news to anybody, but we lost two other manufacturers in the past because they had a prettier interface, right? Not because it was a better, more feature-rich product, but it looked nice.
And simple, right? So we do have all of the CLI access, all of the quote unquote nerd knobs available still, right? Whereas that's what kind of separates us apart from some of our competitors that need that flexibility. So we still offer that, right? So we're not taking any of that stuff away here. We're just making it look cleaner and simplifying the way that you configure as well as accessing the data on your network.
Yeah, good call out there.
In my unfamiliarity with the product, but once you start going from a site down the tree and sort of drilling in, is there a way to get back up the tree the same path that you took? Or do you have to go back to the site and then drill in again?
From the main page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you can, so look, if I'm here, here's my little site button, right? So that just brings me right back to having that site be my center point of the solar system, right? So if I go to a client or a device, I'll have this bring me back to the site button here.
And if you went to clients from there to look at some of the clients?
Yep, so
So click on clients in the solar system.
Yep. If I click on clients, I've got this client, all its information, and again,
Can I go back one step or am I going back to the site?
gotcha. You're going back to the site. Yep. Got it.
You got it. Thank you.
Noted.
It's actually the second time I've heard that. So there you go. Thank you.
So the other thing we mentioned, Mike mentioned there, was the access to the switches themselves, right? Switches, APs, what have you. We've always been of the opinion that we don't want to take away the access that you have, that you've known, that you've grown up with, right? Just because we decided to move into cloud management, right? So if I come here, I'm at my switch. I went to the troubleshoot little button on the switch itself. And so I've got some quick test options, right? What do I want to do? I want to run a ping, a trace route. I think somebody mentioned bouncing a port on an individual basis, right? And not having to, go to an SSH session or what have you, right? We've got all these things just kind of quickly right here for us to do our troubleshooting. Now, we still will have a remote console, right? So if I just love my CLI and I'm, out and about, I don't have VPN access, or I get tired of having VPN access to SSH to switch or what have you, I can just do it right from here, right? Add my username and password. Now I've got a full console session built right into my web browser here, right? If I don't know what I'm doing, right? Here's a list of all the things you can do, right? So that CLI, I don't need to know everything, but I know what I'm looking for, right? So I can build that out here, right? Just want to look at, DHCP server, right? We saw that was a problem. So I've added these commands. Now I can run them. I can set them to repeat, and then I'll get the outputs from running this. I'll have the history, right? So I'm still giving you full access to these guys. You still have a console port on them if you still want to plug in. You want to go to your closet and pack that console cable with you. It's fully available. What I will say is while it's in Central, it's show only, right? So if you try config T, it's going to say, no thanks. You're managed by Central, and we have one source of truth, right? We don't want anybody to start poking around. If you needed to do something in a disaster recovery type of scenario, you can, right? But when you check back in, this is the source of truth.